Now let's look inside this switch statement, which is where the actual code is that does the data retrieval. And here are the elements of that switch, the different cases for my picks, for friends' picks, and so forth. And what I'm going to do is to jump around in here to show you from the simple ones to the more complex ones how they operate, because they all operate in the same way. Now, down here I'm looking at one specific pick that I want. And in this case, all I'm doing is executing an SQL retrieval request. I'm constructing it here, select, and let me put in some line breaks here so that we can look at this. And I'm getting the name, the address, and so forth from the picks table, where the ID in the database is equal to pick ID, which is the variable that was passed in, that I decoded in that section at the top of the file, where I look at the parameter and then turn it into a local variable. This is the most basic type of select statement. And I'm constructing this, and then it comes down here at the bottom outside the switch statement, and I'm actually executing that. So the simplest one is the one where I'm looking for a single item from the database. Almost as simple is the case where I'm looking for the most popular picks. And here I'm doing, again, the same sort of thing, the same select statement from the picks table, but this is longer because what I'm doing is I have a select statement here that comes into the user picks table, grouping by the pick ID. And remember, the user picks table is that join table, and I'm looking for the pick IDs that appear most frequently. I've ordered them by number in descending order of frequency because I've grouped them. So for example, if pick ID 17 occurs 50 times, it will appear as a single row. It'll say 50. I'll see that's the number there, and then the next one might be something that occurs 43 times. And I'm looking at the limit of 1. I'm looking for the single most popular pick. So this is, again, very, very basic SQL, and all I'm doing is looking for the most popular item. It's a complex statement, but you'll find it in any SQL reference, and you can just use this code as is. Now, the reason that these two cases are so simple is because pagination does not apply. If I'm retrieving only one item, or if I'm retrieving one item that happens to be the most popular, there is no issue of pagination because I am only retrieving one item. But now I come down here, and if I am looking at my picks, what I need to do before I construct the query, and again, let me just split this line, you'll see that this is a subquery here where I'm getting the Facebook user ID equal to the user ID that was passed in. So that's, which is mine. So that's where I get all of my picks. Now up here, this whole section up here, this if statement, checks to see if two of those variables that are set from the parameters passed in, base URL and total rows equals 0. That means that this is the first call and I will need pagination. And in order to do pagination, what I need to do is to come down here and execute just a count statement. So I'm doing basically the same thing that I'm going to do in the actual query, but I'm counting how many results there will be, and I'm getting them here and fetching the row, and then I'm setting total rows, which up here was 0, and total rows is now going to be the total number of rows that I'm going to be retrieving, and that is going to give me the pagination when it says 1 to 3 of 5. I know what that number is going to be. The same thing here for friends. I have a more complex query. The query down here is more complex, and the count up here is more complex because it has to reflect the query that I'm going to be executing. And the default element of this switch statement is right down here, where I'm going to be able to look at what I use with the browse picks, where I can select categories and zones, and I'm doing the count here, and then I'm doing the actual construction of the query. So those are the ways in which I am getting the data from the database. At the core of each of these sections is a very basic SQL query, and in fact you can hard code it in Query Browser and test it to see that it's working properly.